The Mamba Release is one of the coolest releasing skills you can do with a jump rope, and there's a couple things you need to know to do this smoothly and to end up doing some really cool combos with it later on. First thing you need to know is that this is actually a combo of two different skills put together. It looks like it's just one skill, but you're actually doing a pattern of doing a regular mic release first, catching it and going into a same side mic release on the other side. Now, this is a little bit weird because if you've done a mic release before, which you definitely need to do before trying the Mamba, you might be familiar with that rotation, but the same side mic is a little bit tricky. It's really weird, feels odd, it's very strange, but you need to practice that first before you get into doing the Mamba Release. So to practice this, what you can do is bring the rope forwards over your head, bring your releasing hand more or less underneath your elbow. This is not a perfect position, it's just more or less in this general area. Bring the rope forwards, and as it comes around, let go of that hand into that release. You have to push the rope forwards into this release, which is gonna feel very odd. You need to push it forwards and try to rotate it as many times as you can without it dropping or getting crazy. You just need 2 or 3 rotations that you more or less understand. You need to use your wrist to keep it moving, not your entire arm yanking it around. Use the inflection of your wrist to keep the rope moving. You don't have to be perfect with this by any means, just more or less get a feel for it because we need to understand what this feels like in order to do the Mamba Release or this pattern of doing one mic to the other and back and forth. Now, as you're practicing this, you gotta watch out because a lot of jumpers will actually pull the rope backwards and go into this backwards release here, which is very different than a forwards same side mic. So you gotta watch out for that because you wanna make sure that you're doing the correct forwards same side mic. Otherwise, it's gonna get really confusing really fast. So knowing the exact types of releases we're doing in this combo is important as the first step, but there's 2 more things that we're gonna talk about. So the next thing is, once you've got those 2 pieces in place, we're gonna do a mic release, then transition to the other side into that same side position. And as you transition from one side to the other, don't wait until you feel like you're ready or you've done enough mic rotations. A lot of jumpers will hang out here and wait, and then go too late and the rope hits the ground and crazy things happen. We don't wanna do that. You wanna transition your hand sooner than you think you need to. So when the rope is still behind your back, you pull it over to the side and tell it where to go. You guide the rope. This skill moves pretty quickly. You don't have a whole lot of time, even when you do slow it down. You don't have a whole lot of time to really think about what's going on. You have to go right into the next position and lead the rope before you feel like you're ready. And once you do that, you gotta keep the rope moving. So once you do that mic and you come to the other side, use your wrist to keep the rope going, keep it rotating. Don't just freeze up and lock your arm and use your shoulder to rotate it. Use that wrist to keep things moving as you get into that same side mic. The same thing will be true after that. So once you get that rotation done for that same side mic, you gotta go right back and you gotta transition again sooner than you think you need to. Don't wait and hang out. A lot of jumpers will do this rotation. They'll come over to the side and they'll wait and kind of try to manage it here, and it gets messy, and then they try to transition over to the other side, and it's just tough to manage. So the longer you stay there, the harder it gets to control the Mamba. So you just wanna do 1 rotation per side, but even though you're doing just 1 rotation per side, it's gonna feel like 2. So this is a little bit of a weird thing because technically you're doing 1, but practically as you're doing it, it's gonna feel like you're doing 2 rotations. So stick to that. Just feel like you're doing 2 rotations per side, back and forth, because if you do any more than that, you start to lose control. Things get a little bit difficult. So waiting and hedging and being like, I'm not so sure if this is right, that's gonna make this skill a lot harder. So really make sure that as you're transitioning and moving the rope sooner than you think you need to, because if you do that, you're gonna be on the right track. But you don't have to go fast. You don't have to do that mic release and then hurry up and pull it super aggressively. You just need to go very gradually, but make sure that the moment that you choose to transition is a lot earlier than you think you need to. So hopefully at this point, that part's pretty drilled in. It's a little bit tricky to kind of get used to at first, but if you understand that timing, it really does help the Mamba feel a lot easier. Now, the last main quick tip to kind of help out with the Mamba is that you want to be doing a figure 8 position with your hands. You don't want to just go side to side, left and right, back and forth. You actually want to be turning a figure 8 with your wrist as you go from side to side. And it's not about using your shoulder to push the rope side to side. It's about using your wrist to draw this path in a figure 8. You go down, you scoop up, you scoop down and across your body, you come back up, you scoop down and across again, and back and forth. You need to feel your wrist inflecting and changing as you do this. If you're doing it correctly, you're gonna notice you don't even need your front hand, your turning hand to move that far across your body. It's gonna be all that movement in your wrist that keeps the rope moving exactly how it should. You will notice though that your hand is probably gonna move away from your body a little bit. You'll see it kind of hang out in front of your body here. That's totally fine, as long as you're using your wrist to direct the rope, not your entire arm. That is super duper important. And if you've kind of gone through this and you've practiced and you get to the point where you do start to see that the Mamba is making some sense, you're kind of getting some control over it, there's actually different ways you can modify and do interesting things. So again, the Mamba is not just its own skill out in the ether of jump rope. It's actually belongs to a system of how jump rope works. We can actually tweak it and modify it to do some really interesting things and come up with some very interesting combinations. One of my favorite ones is to actually start with the same side mic release. So like I was showing earlier, you can actually initiate the same side mic right away, but we can make it a little bit more fancy than that. You can actually take your releasing hand and put it behind your back as you let go into that same side mic, come across and catch, which is a really cool variation. The reason I like this one so much is it fits in your normal jumping a lot better than the core Mamba release. The standard Mamba, where you go release, transition, transition, and catch, it's a little bit challenging to get a rhythm to jump through that and to kind of stay consistent without just standing in place. This version is actually a lot easier because you have one less rotation to worry about. So as you jump, you can keep it a lot smoother and bring it all the way around, even if it does hit your knee. It's all good. So it's kind of a fun option there. You do have to make sure that as you do this one, you're gonna be tempted to put that hand all the way behind your back and really reach far. You do not even need that hand to go behind your back. Just tuck it a little bit, point it behind your back, but it doesn't actually have to go there. Use the momentum of your turning hand, the one that's gonna stay holding the rope. Use that hand to pull it out of your releasing hand and into that same side mix. So you jump, release, and keep things moving from there. This is one of my absolute favorites. It's really cool, it's super smooth, but you do need to make sure that you can get the standard Mamba first. You more or less have a good understanding of it. Then you can move on to doing this option, which is really cool and a lot better to jump during, in my opinion. And to do this, you have to make sure that you understand that forward same side mic release. Do not skip learning that, because if you just power through the Mamba and just hope you're gonna figure it out along the way, you could, but it's gonna be a lot harder than it needs to be. So take some time to just drill that same side mic and get that vertical rotation on its own, because if you do, this combo here where you release it behind your back gets a lot easier, a lot smoother, and a lot more fun to just throw into your jumping. Now there's another option that you can do here that I like a whole bunch, which is to do a Mamba release into an EB cross, which is really cool. So you can do your Mamba release, come all the way across, and then catch it into a swing EB and back to the middle. The cool thing about mic releases is normally we would catch it and we would finish immediately into a single under, jumping over the rope, but you could alternatively catch your mic release and be in a side swing, which is exactly what we're doing. So we can do this in the Mamba. So you start the Mamba, come across again, catch it, and leave your hands on the side. The hand that catches the rope should drop down to the floor, a little bit tighter than I'm showing here. I'm doing things really dramatic, so it's obvious on camera, but you'll catch it and drop it down to the floor so it transitions very smoothly behind your back and into that EB cross. So again, Mamba release from side to side, catch it low, bring it around, and then boom, there you go. Now, obviously, you're not gonna figure out all this in just one quick session from watching one quick video. You're definitely not expected to learn it super fast. These are just some options so that as you're learning the Mamba, you know how to then use it and do some cool stuff later on. And of course, if you can get both of these combos individually, right? We had releasing behind the back, bringing it around, catching, and we also have the standard Mamba coming all the way around into that EB cross. You could merge them together, and this is definitely the way I would prefer to do it. I don't like doing the full Mamba from one side, back and forth, back and forth. I like just doing the quick and snappy version. It just works better for the way I like to jump. So you can actually jump, release, come all the way around, catch, EB, and boom. there you have it. Now, obviously, these combos do require some prerequisite skills. You need to know how to do your mic release first, of course. You need to also be able to do an EB cross, but those are pretty reasonable if you're going after a Mamba release. So it's a really cool way to kind of pair everything all together. And if you're not quite at this level yet, and this is a little bit beyond you, but it looks cool and you want to get there eventually, maybe you're a little bit new to jump rope, got some free resources down below that you can check out.